Okay. Okay. I'm ready.
You ready?
Yes.
You say everybody?
Hi,
everybody. Who are you?
Leana.
Who am I?
Momma Kia, my mother.
And we're here today to read you the story. What's the story of the day, Lee?
In Her Hands, the story of sculptor Augusta Savage.
Beautiful. By Alon Schroeder and illustrated by Jamie Burrell. So this is going to be the story. And as we go through the story today, we're going to, of course, take turns reading, and we'll show pictures as we go along. All right? So
I'm
get
a sculptor
cozy.
myself.
Oh, are you?
Yes.
You sculpt?
Yes.
What do you sculpt?
Clay.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So we really like this one, right? You ready to get started?
Yeah.
Do I start first or you going to start? All right. Let's get it in. I really like this cover too. Here we go. In Her Hands. Out back behind the house, there was an open pit filled with clay, soft, gooey, just waiting to be shaped into something clay. Every afternoon, Augusta would sit barefoot at the edge of the pit and make little clay figures. Her mama, Cornelia, didn't mind, even if she did think it was messy. But her daddy, Edward, disapproved. He thought Augusta was wasting her time. One afternoon, he came out to pit and gave her a sour look. "What's you doing there, girl?" Augusta held up her hands, sticky with clay, playing, making stuff. Let me show you a little picture. She's playing, making stuff. It says, playing. Edward shook his head. He was a preacher and didn't believe in play. "You ought to be reading the Bible instead," he told her. "Cultivating your mind, saving your soul." "I don't want to read the Bible," Augusta said stubbornly. Edward grabbed her by the wrist and yanked her to her feet. "Don't you never talk back to me," he said, and he gave her a sharp swat on the rear so she wouldn't forget. Look at that, y'all. You see?
Okay.
All right, ready? Your turn.
Twice a week, the entire family had to go to church. Augusta and her sisters would put on their best dresses, and the boys their best pants.
There you go.
And Carolina would take them down the road to the church. The only part of the service that Augusta liked was the singing. After her father's sermon, the men and women of the chore would step forward and begin to sing. If Augusta was lucky, they would sing her favorite song. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. After church, Augusta would run home and put on some grubby clothes, then plop down next to the pit. She would sink her fingers into the wet, gooey clay. Nothing made her happier than to take a fistful of wet clay and turn it into a duck or a chicken or a little pig with a curly tail.
Oink, oink. Did you show him the picture? Let's show him the picture.
This is her at church. She's the little girl. Why?
You show him? Can you point to it?
Let's see if I can.
Right there. All right,
Augusta was little.
She was little. It says, the whole time she lived in Green Cove Springs, Augusta made little clay figures, just like you, Lee. She gave some to her brothers and sisters, but mostly she kept them hidden at the bottom of her mama's trunk, where her daddy wouldn't find them. Edward didn't like to see them around the house. He called them profane. and if he found one, he would crush it to dust. It's kind of sad, right?
Mm-hmm.
One afternoon, Cornelia went to draw water from the pump. Next to the shed, she found her daughter crying, clutching a smashed clay figure in her hands. He didn't have to step on it, Augusta kept saying. He does it to just be mean. Cornelia ran her hand through Augusta's hair. No, he's not mean, she said. He just doesn't understand. That's all. He'll come around, Gussie. Give him time. So that's what happened there when he stepped on her clay figure, right? And then when mommy is talking to Augusta, right?
Just like she did for me.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this looks like fun.
When Augusta was 15, Edward took a job at a church in the southern part of Florida. Augusta packed up her dresses and her shoes and her little clay figures, and with the rest of her family, she moved to West Palm Beach. But she didn't like it there. There were no clay pits in town, none that Augusta could find anywhere. And nearly for a year, she didn't make a single clay figure. None.
Not
Not
one?
one.
Not one? Could you imagine that?
Well, I have to do that.
Go ahead.
Her heart grew heavy, and she wondered if she would ever work with clay again. Then one day, Augusta was riding in a wagon with her school principal, Mr. Mickens, when she saw a sign on the front of a shop, Chase Pottery, factory open to the public. Pottery, Augusta thought. That means clay. Stop the wagon, she cried. I've got to get out.
I've got to get out. What did she find?
Clay.
Clay.
Just like me. If we went to Michael's, then we would always stop in the clay section.
Yeah.
I would ask her to give me some.
We really like the clay. It says, Mr. Mickens drew the horse to a halt. I'll be back in a minute, Augusta told him. Then quickly she ran into the factory. There was no one inside, but out back, under a battered tin roof, she found a long work table, a potter's wheel, and buckets of
Clay.
Augusta wondered where it came from. I have a friend up north. He sends it to me, the owner told her. Augusta dipped her fingers into a bucket. The clay was soft and gooey, just like the kind she had known in Green Cove Springs. Only this clay wasn't red. Go on, take some, the potter said. I've got plenty, but you've got to promise to show me some of your art sometime. Maybe I can learn something from you. Augusta was surprised to hear him use that word, art. She had never thought of her pieces that way before. It was certainly something to think about.
I remember when I had done that.
Yeah.
And I was like really like excited, and I showed my clay figures for this talent show thing online with my teacher and some other students.
That was pretty cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We should do it again.
Then there's another one.
Yeah, we can create one. Mm-mm. You seem mighty happy, Mr. Mickens said when Augusta returned to the wagon. Augusta nodded. I've waited a long time for this day. Show the picture. You imagine that? Something that you love to do and someone has an abundance. That was one of our words, right? Abundance. Lots and lots of clay that they can just give some away. All right, your turn.
Okay. Augusta showed her mother the 3 buckets of clay that Mr. Chase had given her. Coraline looked worried. Cornelia looked worried. If I was you, I'd keep it out of sight, she warned. It'll just make your father mad. Augusta hid the clay. All 25 pounds of it.
25 pounds?
It in the tool shed, under a feed bag, but it wasn't long before Edward found it. He was all set to throw it up, but Cornelia begged him not to. Edward, I've never thought of you as a mean person before, and I don't want to start thinking of you that way. Augusta ain't done nothing wrong. You just let her be. But it's sinful, Edward insisted. Reaching over, Cornelia took the buckets away from her husband. You go inside and wash up now, she said. Supper's at 5.
Mm.
The picture.
Oh, the picture.
Mm.
So she was stopping him, right?
Mm.
Sometimes we need somebody like that. Augusta never found out what her mother had said to her father, but from then on, she was allowed to make as many clay ducks and chickens as she liked. One day, for fun, she sculpted something different. A Virgin Mary, 18 inches high, with soft folded hands and a face like an angel. She took it to school, and when Mr. Micken saw it, he was impressed. "You've got real talent," he said, "and it shouldn't go to waste." He gave Augusta a kind look. "Tell me, how many brothers and sisters do you have at home?" 13, Augusta answered. "Plus me and Momma and Daddy." "That's a lot of mouths to feed," the principal said. He knew that Augusta's family was poor, and he wanted to help if he could. "I've been thinking," he went on, "if Mr. Chase is willing to give us some clay, I'd like you to teach the other students how to work it, how to make little fingers like you do. If you do that, Augusta, I'll give you $1 a day." She's putting her art to work. Like, yeah, I say you can teach other people how to do your clay work, girl. Every day. Well, wait, before I say every day, her eyes widen. Can you see them? Like, every day, she whispered. She couldn't believe he had that much money. The principal smiled. "That's right, every day." Edward didn't like the idea of Augusta teaching other children to waste their time, but he was sure quick to take the $1 that she brought home every day. So she gave the money to her dad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Long after Augusta had stopped going to school, she continued to make figures out of clay. Dogs, cats, houses, people. She liked her work. But as time passed, Augusta grew up. She wondered if her sculptures were any good. It wasn't enough that her mother said so. She had to find out for herself. When Augusta was 27, she entered some of her clay figures in the county fair. On the day of the contest, the judge moved from table to table, writing in their notebooks. Coronella was sure that her daughter would win. "I've seen every entry," he told Augusta, "and Gussie, yours are the best." Then Cornelia's voice dropped. "Don't tell your father I said so, but I really think you should become an artist." The judges agreed, and Augusta won $25 first prize. She also won a special ribbon for most original exhibit.
Ooh.
Show them the picture.
Show them the picture. Ba-ba-da-da. At the county fair.
Why can't I go real up?
County fair.
Augusta's in the orange dress.
Yeah. You met her mother, right? Cornelia.
Corn.
That evening in the moonlight, Augusta walked home with George Graham Curry, the man who ran the fair. They had met only a few days before, but already had become good friends. I think your mama's right, Mr. Curry said. Maybe you should become an artist. For several days, Augusta had been thinking the same thing. I could help you if you like, Mr. Curry went on. I know a sculptor in New York. His name is Solon Borglum. Is he famous?
Is he famous?
Is he famous? Oh my. Is he famous?
Is he famous?
Is he famous?
Is he famous?
Augusta asked. Pretty much. Even got his own school. Mr. Curry nodded. I'll bet if you were to ring his doorbell, he'd be glad to give you a hand. Y'all walking and talking. Right there.
When Augusta arrived home, she discovered her mother sitting on the porch. It was a warm night, and Cornelia was fanning herself. Augusta sat down beside her. Mama, I've made up my mind. I'm gonna use the money I won to go to New York.
You can get a ticket for $25 to go to New York.
Yeah. She said,
can we do that now? Maybe. We gotta find it. Okay, go ahead. New York. I stopped you. There you go.
I'm going to become an artist.
Can you say that again?
I'm going to become an artist.
Can you say it again with some more excitement?
Okay. I'm going to become an artist.
Woo! Go ahead, Lee.
Cornelia looked startled. New York? But that's so far away. Ain't you scared? Of course I'm scared. But if I don't do it now, I never will. Augusta took hold of her mother's hand. Oh, Mama, be happy for me. That's what I need. Cornelia wiped a tear from her eye. I am happy for you, she said. But, girl, I'm gonna miss you so.
Right? Mama. On a hot day in late September, Augusta took the train to New York City. As soon as she arrived, she found herself a little room in Harlem. Then she went to see Mr. Curry's sculptor friend to ask if he would give her lessons. Solon Borglum was a nice man, but he shook his head. I'm afraid I charge $10 a lesson, he said. Do you have $10? The unhappy look on Augusta's face was all the answer he needed. Don't give up, he said. There's an art school here in New York that doesn't charge any tuition. I'll write you a letter of introduction. Try to get you in. Mr. Borglum reached for a pen. Meanwhile, Augusta looked around the room. On every shelf, there were sculptures of cowboys and Indians and bucking broncos. Isn't that awesome?
Mm-hmm.
We were just learning about cowboys. What were we learning about? Black cowboys, right? Black cowboys and cowgirls. It's awesome. And are all these yours? She asked. The artist nodded. Yes, indeed. Every one of them. I grew up in Nebraska, he said, roping and riding. I've even lived on an Indian reservation. I guess you could say I sculpt what I know. He signed his name to the letter. Then he gave Augusta a curious look. Tell me, Miss Savage, what do you know? Augusta was confused. I don't know what you mean. Oh, I think you do. Mr. Baldwin smiled. What matters most to you? You two, you, right there. Think about it. What matters most to you? When you think about your life, what comes to mind?
What comes to mind? What comes to mind? Who, where, what? What comes to mind? What comes to mind?
Go ahead.
Augusta had never been asked that kind of question before. She closed her eyes and thought for a moment. Green Cove Springs. That was what she cared about. The place where she'd grown up, with its clay pits and smelly sulfur springs. And the school she'd gone to, and the kids she used to play with. Macy and Margaret and Pee-wee. This is Macy, and this is Margaret, and this is Pee-wee. Pee-wee's the little boy. That's funny.
She thought of her daddy's church and all the people who went there on Sunday to listen to him preach. She could see her daddy in her mind, up there at the pulpit, clutching the Bible and talking about Jesus and doing right in a glorious day sure to come. She remembered holding on to her mother's hand, while next to the pulpit in purple robes, the members of the choir rocked back and forth, filling the church with joy. He's got you and me, brother, in his hands. He's got you and me, sister, in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. Augusta opened her eyes. Mr. Borglum was looking at her. How could she explain to him what she'd seen in her mind? You don't need to tell me, the sculptor said. I could see it in your face. He folded the letter into thirds and slipped it into an envelope. I hope this gets you in, he said. But if it doesn't, don't come back. There's nothing more I can do for you.
Morgan.
Yeah. That's okay though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Your turn.
The next morning, Augusta went to Cooper Union School and presented her letter to the lady in charge. Miss Reynolds. No.
It's okay. Go ahead. Come on.
Okay, come on, Amara. No, Amara, you go out.
Come on. Real life story time. Come on, bro.
Mm-mm.
All right.
Amara, you have to go out.
It's okay. We've got a visitor. Baby Amara's in. Ready?
Say hi. 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 Mm-mm.
Ready? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. So, her letter to the lady in charge, Miss Reynolds, was a tall, thin woman with her hair done up in a bun. Where are your pieces? Show me. Augusta was taken aback. I don't have any, she said. I mean, I do, but they're at home in Florida. Miss Reynolds frowned. So you've got nothing to show, nothing at all? Augusta looked at her feet. I'm sorry. I didn't know. Miss Reynolds glanced. Miss Reynolds glanced at her watch. She had work to do at the same time. She felt sorry for Augusta and wanted to give her a helping hand. Listen to me, Miss Savage. I want you to sculpt a piece for me tonight. I don't care what it is or how small it is, but you bring it to me tomorrow morning. I'll decide then whether to admit you or not.
Okay. We're almost done. This is a really good story. That evening in her tiny apartment, Augusta unpacked a heavy hump of clay she had bought at an art supply store. Using a knife, she cut the clay into several pieces. What she had in mind was a barnyard scene. She had been sculpting ducks and chickens for years. They were easy to make. But would that be enough? A family of ducks. What would Miss Reynolds say when she saw them? With a sigh, Augusta mashed down the duckling she had started. Then she remembered what Mr. Borglum had said. Sculpt what you know. Augusta closed her eyes and thought deeply. Church, her father, the pulpit, those long sermons, those were the things that she knew most and best. That very morning, on her way to Cooper Union, Augusta had passed by a church. Through the open door, she'd seen a minister standing at the pulpit, speaking to the congregation, a big man with a wide, friendly face. Augusta tried to picture his features, his close-cut gray hair, the birthmark on his cheek, the gap between his front teeth. I got one of those. It took a while for Augusta to fix the image in her mind. Then she took a deep breath, sank her fingers into the clay, and went to work. She's very focused, isn't she? Yeah. All right. Whoops. Your turn.
Hours passed in the apartment above. Someone was playing the piano. A ragtime piece down below. A baby was crying. Out on the porch, on the fire escape, Miss King was cooking hot dogs. But Augusta did not hear the piano or the baby, and she did not smell. And though her window was open, she did not smell the hot dogs. Although all of her attention was given to the block of clay in front of her. That was the only thing that mattered.
So that means she wasn't focused on anything else, just the clay. That's good.
Here and there, pockets of stars appeared in the sky. The piano had gone silent. The baby was quiet. Harlan fell asleep. But in one third-floor apartment, a light continued to burn far into the night.
Early the next morning, Augusta showed up at Cooper Union. She looked tired, as though she hadn't slept. Do you think she did?
No.
In her hand, she held something heavy, covered with a dish towel. Well, let me see it, said Miss Reynolds. I haven't got all day. Augusta placed her artwork on a nearby table. Then she removed the dish towel. Miss Reynolds studied the sculpture with a critical eye. At one point, she turned the bust around so she could see the back of it. Minutes ticked by. Miss Reynolds jotted something, so she's writing, jotted in a notebook. Then she turned to Augusta. Tell me, where are your parents? She asked. Are they here in New York? No, ma'am. They're in Florida. That's where they live. My dad is a minister. Miss Reynolds nodded. Well, you write to them tonight, and you tell them that their daughter is officially a student at the Cooper Union School of Art. Augusta could hardly believe her ears. You mean it? She cried. You'll start tomorrow morning, Miss Reynolds replied. Come to my office at 9 o'clock, and you needn't bring any clay. We'll provide all your supplies for you.
Outside, she stood on the steps. Augusta's heart pounded with joy. Ever since she was a little girl, she had dreamed of becoming an artist. And now that dream was about to come true. At the bottom of the steps, something caught her eye. A hopscotch pattern on the sidewalk. Augusta laughed and sitting down, the bust she was carrying. She began to skip lively. Maybell, Maybell, set the table. Don't forget the red hot label. Shake the salt, shake the pepper. You'll be the highest stepper. A group of students who were going into Cooper Union stared. A few even laughed. But Augusta didn't care. She felt too happy. Besides, she had to do something to celebrate. With her eyes shut, she skipped back to where she started. She collected the bust that she had made, then the one that had gotten into the one that had got her into Cooper Union. Then, half walking, half skipping, Augusta turned her steps in toward home. She had a letter to write.
All right. So we're almost done. So that's the end of the story. So we really enjoy and welcome. So we have a lot of storytellers and learners and listeners at this time. They're all joining in at this point in time. So we hope that you all I hope that you all enjoyed the story. The story was Lee in her hands. The story of sculptor Augusta Savage. Here you all. And I hope that you enjoy the story with all of your family for tonight. And we look forward to reading another story with you all very soon. Thank you all and have a wonderful good night. Peace.